It is Sunday, the weekend of October 5th, and welcome to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. Let's go ahead and look at the price action for the indexes this week, and we'll cover the close of the monthly candles for October as well. Another week of big moves, starting with the NQ. Bit of a short bit of moves early in the week. Everyone kind of waiting on the Fed's talking on Wednesday, and sure enough, ton of volatility coming back into the market after the Feds gave their decision. Huge green day. Every day after that, right? So just a huge week for the NASDAQ, closing above this kind of key range that we were looking at, and also this level that we had stated previously that we wanted to see it close above in order to have a chance of making it back to the highs. Still has a little bit of work to do, right? We want to see it close above 15,400 to really kind of confirm that. I think that's going to end up being the major level to close above to confirm a shift back to the bullish trend, kind of break this trend of consistently lower highs and lower lows. We did still technically put in a lower low here, so until that is broken, we're going to need to, see some more price action to the upside here. Now, I will say, if you're someone who still believes that this rally might just be a dead cat bounce or something like that, 15,400, maybe 15,500 is really not a bad area to short. Actually, technically speaking, looks really good, and you could even target the same low down here or even lower low, which could be a great risk to reward trade. But if you're someone who kind of bets on seasonality, we are coming into the end of the year, potentially some strength. But technically speaking, we do need to see a higher high formed here above this 15,400 high here if we're going to get a chance of actually moving back to the highs on this chart. So that's something to keep in mind. Weekly, you could argue this is a bullish engulfing candle, perhaps. Again, I still don't think that it's not all said and done until we close over 15,400. So we'll just have to see what happens when we get there. The monthly candles, kind of got a three black crows look, really not the greatest, but this kind of relief coming back in here from the week before still looks good. I mean, last month itself, we actually went all the way back up to that 15,400 level and then still closed way down here, 14,450-ish, even though we tagged down all the way lower, 14,140. Pretty big moves either way, but still closing up above kind of the 0.618 Fibonacci level, so it's really not too bad yet. If we can get another close back down here, 14,300, we're definitely going to see 13,600 on the NQ, so keep that in mind going forward. Let's go ahead and talk about the S&P futures. Not too different of a story. I think that, if you're a trend trader, this line, it was the big one. We broke below that, really kind of went down just right on it now. So if we can break back above decisively and start respecting that again, perhaps we have a chance of making it back to the highs. It's a very similar chart to the NQ, but I think the key difference here is we want to see 14,440-ish kind of broken above, close above, and then come back and use that as support to essentially move back to the highs again. Until that happens, we've still made this series of lower highs and lower lows, so we're going to need to see a reversal of that here as well. Weekly, same story, right? Just these really big red candles with a modicum of relief, and we just got our first really big bullish green candle, so we'll have to see kind of what happens at 14,400 level-ish. So 14,430, I think is the right one. On the monthly, a similar look to the NQ, right? Kind of touched down near some of these lows, got really, really close to 4,100. Might as well have been 4,100, where we've talked about this a lot, how that was just a huge area of support. So it makes total sense that it would at least bounce off from there. Maybe that got enough liquidity to make it back to the highs. We'll have to see, but keep watching 4,430. If that level breaks above, we have a chance of making it back to the highs. Let's go ahead and look at the small caps. Small caps, really, let's make this look a little bit better. We'll go to the weekly here. At another equal low look. So we did break down below the 1,678 level, like we talked about was very likely to happen. And we kind of just made another equal low down here, 16,040. I still think there's a chance that we could see lower, 16,000, 1616. or even at the lower end of the range that we kind of targeted from back here in the 1500s. I think for that to be negated, we'd have to close above 1853, somewhere around that area. If we can regain this, then we have a chance of moving back to the highs. Until then, we're just back in the range, right? There's nothing that's been broken about this consolidation. So RTY, this was, you know, if you wanted to start taking a position, even if you thought it was going down here, this was a good place to start taking a long. Until we close above 1851, though, I think, you know, it's not 100% certain that we won't see lower. So keep those levels in mind. You know, gold has had a lot of strength, right? So we just had this continuation kind of what was going on before. We had a bit of a red week, and then, you know, popping up a little bit. It's kind of just chilling at the top end of the range here. Really does look like it wants to break out. You know, it is consolidating higher. That's kind of something that we want to look for when we want to see it break out. Like, it's kind of like drift of deathing up into the level again after testing it. That means it's probably going to break through, but we'll have to see. Looking at the weekly, you know, another strong close. Even though it is a red candle, it wicked down very low and ended up getting bought up. So it didn't quite close too far down to where it came. Still looks good for a new high look to me, but it could always still come back down a bit. And the monthly candle, man, what a candle. Wicking down into this area that we had marked out and then just closing so much higher, just wicking through everything and testing up at that area to break. So that's a huge reversal. I mean, that is a really nice look for higher. So I mean, all the time frames really agree on gold. I think that we're coming higher. You could come back down 1940, still look good for higher. You know, we made a higher high essentially over this one. So essentially, we're just looking for support to get through back to the highs. Let's go ahead and look at the Dow. You know, these major index charts all look the same, right? You know, we're potentially about to make an equal or higher high, but we still have to kind of close above a key level for that to be the case. On the Dow, 34,400 is that level. So if we can get it to close above there, we have a chance of kind of moving back to the highs. So be on the lookout for that. Would look even better if we can get to 34,700. You know, that's kind of where this area kind of broke to produce this next low that we just recovered from. So those two areas are the areas to watch on the Dow. The monthly, you know, again, another look of, you know, these three red candles in a row. Last month dipping lower, moving back up, but still ends up we're still in a downtrend until we close above those levels that we just mentioned. So we'll just have to see what happens with the Dow on those levels. Oil has, man, just lost every single trend, except pretty much at this point the monthly, I would say. The monthly's still holding. I would say if we can hold above maybe 76 here, we still have an uptrend intact on the monthly chart. So, you know, the weekly, if you want to consider this a higher high, then this being the low immediately after that, you know, we've closed below that. I mean, you could argue that we don't lose the weekly trend until we come back down here and hold like 77 or 76. That's fine, but I wouldn't like to see this close below 80 for a long on oil. Doesn't look as good, doesn't look as clean, certainly a sloppy chart. But, you know, I think the important thing to think of is that we really haven't closed below 80 yet. We've tapped it, close, but, you know, we have the support of all of this interaction at that level from the past. You could get a little bit of a fake out and coming back higher potentially. Not a bad area to take along, but we'll just have to kind of see what happens going forward. So not really much else to say on oil other than we'll have to see what happens at 80 bucks, right? Let's go ahead and look at the dollar. This has been one of the most fake out charts in recent times, I would say. I mean, we look at the 4-hour, and we had all of these, you know, are we going to break out? Are we just testing? We're looking like we're breaking lower, moving back up to the high, can't quite do it. Make our higher low and looked really like it wanted to break out higher. That looked so good. And then what do? We make an even lower low. Just a huge fake out. But now we are firmly below 105.8, which was kind of the key area we were looking at and where the range of the box is here. So we're definitely going to, well, we've made a new low. How low will we go, really? I think now if we look, actually, let's look at the monthly. I mean, we got that one close or two close above that 105.8 level, so that's like a confirmation that we look for on the monthly chart. Now we can pull back and find some support. Best areas for that, probably 103.6, maybe even, 104.6. I have this level marked at 104.2. Kind of anywhere in there would be textbook places for a bounce back to the highs. But we have firmly established our uptrend, even on the monthly chart on the dollar. So even if the dollar pulls back more, which it quite likely to do, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing about that screams that we've lost the uptrend in any way. That would be very healthy and to be expected. We're just going to have to find support, and then we'll pop higher. I would say that doesn't look to be in jeopardy until we close below like 103, 102.8, something like that. So that would be a pretty significant drawdown for the dollar. Not saying it's impossible, but we've got a long way to go if we're going to give up the dollar's uptrend. Let's go ahead and look at the banks. The banks got a huge bid this week, right? We kind of talked about how it really needed to regain this area here in the 42s, like 42.9 or whatever. Kind of had this box range that had clearly been respected for some time. We'd failed it, came back down to make a new low at 38.50, which was previously tested support. Kind of came down there a little bit lower and then popped higher. Finally closed above, so that's something that we want to see. Now you'd be like, okay, well, we're back in the uptrend. Potentially. I think that we need to really break 45 to really recapture that uptrend. And that could look like coming up here and testing it, coming back down to this range, or even breaking through that range, coming back down to another area like 39.70, something like that. Just making a higher low and a higher high relative to previous price action. But this 45 area is the major level that if it can break that, we can really start to actually move way back to the highs here. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. The actual monthly candle is, still looks good. That's a nice little dip in there and a pop up from last week's price action for, potentially moving back to the highs. This still looks like an uptrend on the monthly chart. It looked pretty spooky on the other ones, right? The daily and the weekly until last week's price action. So maybe we've regained the liquidity that we need to move back toward the highs. We'll have to see. Definitely watch that $45 level, though. That's going to be the thing that kind of tells the story of this stock. So I think that wraps up the review. Go ahead and give us a like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. And thanks again for tuning in. If you do like this kind of content a lot and want to see other traders participating in the markets and our analysis, go ahead and join our Trader Hub Discord community server. You can find it using our link in the description. See you next week.